What's up, guys? We are here for the first ever episode of the Predliner from Predliner.com. I'm here with my staff writers, Daniel Lavender and Cutler Klein. What's up, fellas?
Hey, how's it going?
Daniel here, Cutler there. So the Predliner, we wanted to kind of give you all a podcast type deal. We're all young, broke people, so we didn't want to spend money on Blog Talk Radio or anything like that, so we're going to do a Google Hangout, upload it to YouTube, give it to you guys, talk Predators. It's going to be a super laid-back show, super chill, just talk hockey, talk Predators, what we love, just a couple guys hanging out, having a good time. So, I'm the editor at Predlines.com. These two good-looking gentlemen below me are my staff writers there. I just got back from the rookie tournament in Nashville, and it was fantastic. I was there as part of the media for the first time, so I was a little bit overwhelmed, but it was awesome. Everybody was great. The Ford Ice Center was incredible. That's the first time I've been in. It only opened up to the public about four days ago, Friday. It was super nice. One of the craziest places I've ever seen. So I saw a bunch of rookies, met all the guys, Chris Martell, Josh Cooper, Gover, all the great guys there. I can officially say that I worked with Josh Cooper for his last ever weekend at the Tennessean. So that was kind of funny, but also, saw Pete Weber, all the guys. He's probably one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my life. But anyway, rookie camp was great. I saw a lot of good hockey. The guys that kind of stuck out to me were, of course, the Forsbergs, the Fialas. Fiala had a goal in the first game against Tampa. He looked really, really well. I know Daniel's pretty pumped to probably see Kevin in Milwaukee, since I don't personally think he's going to make the club right out of training camp. But Daniel, you're excited to see him?
Absolutely. I think that at the 11th pick in the draft, they absolutely found a gem. I don't know if it's just that you sight of certain people in Europe sometimes. But he absolutely looks like quality, doesn't he? It's just so how he moves. His hands are freaky fast. I remember seeing Philip Forsberg once come out on the ice long before a warm-up or a pregame skate, and you just see him doing the stick handling stuff, and it sounds like he already has that, and he does so much of what Philip Forsberg's got now, and he's a year younger.
Yeah, absolutely. He looked great. He had, after the game, we all caught up with him after the game was over, the first game, and he talked about he was actually a little bit nervous, had a little bit of nerves, getting used to the North American style of hockey. He said it was really chippy, really chirpy. He wasn't really expecting it to be that physical, which the first game was physical, but last night's game against Florida was on a different level compared to that. I don't have the stat sheet in front of me. I think the first game had like 16 penalties. I think this one had close to 19 or so. Like, it was just battle. You never had 5-on-5 hockey. Yeah. You saw the tweets about it all. What were you going to say, Cutler?
Yeah, no, why does that happen in a rookie game? I would think that in a sort of preseason tournament type atmosphere, you'd get pretty laid back hockey, people sitting around just trying to show off their skills, you'd have like a development camp kind of game. But why do you think it got so chippy? It almost felt like a good old Red Wings Predators game.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. The first game of the day that I saw Saturday was Boston and Tampa. They had Boston, Florida. Excuse me, Boston, Florida, and they have Ekblad. He looked good, but I'd say the first 5 minutes of the game, it was kind of slow. Just a regular old game, and Ekblad got put on his butt. I'm talking leveled behind the net. On the forecheck, I actually got a video of it. If you hadn't seen it, you should check it out. Yeah. But he got leveled, and right then off that bat, I was like, okay, it's going to be some physical hockey, which I wasn't expecting. But, you got to realize half the guys there are, still young, super young. They're trying to get their names out, be physical. And then the game, against Florida last night, super, super physical. Leipzig took a stick to the face. He's probably the best chirper behind Rich Clune in the system. And he even spoke about, the head coach of the team is Evison, Milwaukee's head coach. And he was like, that's absolutely part of his game. He's a chirper. He gets into people, taking people's water bottles off their goals, just
stuff like that. We lost Matthew Tuesday in the offseason, so we needed another one down there in Milwaukee.
Oh, he's fantastic. He's a little undersized, along with Fiala, but they're going to develop. They both have got stupid good hands. So I'm super excited to see them. You know, like I said, Forsberg and Sissons also caught a stick to the face and had to leave for a little while. You know, had blood all over his jersey. But obviously, I also saw Diaby, which he's the Hulk on skates. He looks like Chara, but about 2 inches shorter.
Yeah. Now, back in July, Mark, you said that that you were sort of a little bit underwhelmed by Diaby. That he was that he sort of felt like he couldn't skate. He was sort of not really ready yet. What do you? Has anything changed since then? What you saw him this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, development camp is it's nothing to hang your hat on, but I remember him. He's missing some passes. Slipping sometimes. Not the best skater on his feet, but last night's game especially, he looked really good. The night before against Tampa, he got a lot of time on the power play. Manning the point. They want him. I think they want to develop him into a Shea Weber slap shot kind of guy from the point, which he ultimately can be. I mean, he's the size of Shea already. He's got the shot. He can develop the shot at least. He hit one from the point and caught. Who was it? It might have been Point or somebody like that from Tampa, and caught him, and the dude went down hard just immediately. And I was expecting him to get up, blood going everywhere, but he got up. I guess it kind of caught him in between the shoulder and the neck, and he got up, went straight to the bench. But I mean, the dude went down, and the whole place went silent. But yeah, he looked really good. I'm excited to see him. I think if there's a close NHL defenseman ready in Milwaukee, it's going to be him. With the Ryan Ellis situation and stuff like that. I think he could slot into like the seventh man on the Preds, but we'll see. But other than that, I mean, it was a great time. Got to get some interviews with some guys. Get some learning curves under my belt, and it was a really good time.
Now,
But,
I think that based on your description, that Diaby could possibly take that sixth slot maybe from Diaby or from Bartley at some point in the future, or Bartley or Ekholm, depending on who can slide in there, who's on top. But I think that he's the kind of big guy you need there. Weber is sort of that type of player. He has a little bit of Chara in him, and your description of the slap shot taking down somebody reminded me of what Weber did against the Senators this year. I believe it was like Cody Ceci. I may be saying that wrong, but yeah, he totally took him down. So I think that based on what you saw, do you think he could easily slide into even a starting role, starting six?
Yeah, I think if he gets one more year under his belt in Milwaukee, I think one full season would do him wonders. Just developing, getting into hockey shape, that kind of deal. Which I mean, he already is a minimum among the boys, and even already against some forwards and stuff like that already. But Daniel, you saw him. I'm guessing you saw him play in Milwaukee a little bit later in the season. What was your impression last year on him?
Well, I was there for his first practice, and I actually ended up interviewing him right off the ice. So I was actually talking to him while he was on skates, and that's intimidating enough. I was down there like looking all the way up and trying to get. The guy's just scary tall, and for a guy with that size, you don't expect him to kind of have no agility and not really be as agile as he is, but he actually moves around very good. So I was actually impressed by his skating. I don't think, and I wasn't there for the games this past weekend to know too much of his in-game stuff yet, but he definitely could use that one more season here in Milwaukee before we even think maybe any NHL spots, because even a guy like Anthony Boteto, I would think, is maybe a little bit more seasoned. To do certain versatile stuff that you want maybe in that bottom rung of a defensive pairing if you need him in a pinch. But at the same time, I think that how many young guys are in Milwaukee this year, he's going to be probably one of the more exciting defensemen you got in there. You also have like Mikko Vainanen, who's also in the mix as well.
Yeah. And with Diaby, I mean, he got time, like I said, on the power play and penalty kill. I mean, you put him in front of the net on the PK. I mean, with Hellberg in net, I mean, heck, nothing's getting past that. I mean, Hellberg is, with his pads on and his helmet on, he is a monster.
I couldn't help but notice on a sheet somewhere, I think he gained another thing. He went from 6'5" to 6'6", I think.
Oh, yeah. He's huge.
He's still growing.
Yeah, he's huge. Him and Gover had a really funny exchange last night in their interview. He said that he saw his nomination from Gover for the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. He's like, "Oh, dude, I got nominated from 5 people. Sorry, but I'll get you back," or something like that. And it was hysterical.
Hellberg is one of the funniest guys, I think, in Milwaukee. He was a guy who, in our locker room, we have a lot of guys who would do sort of interview bombs in and around me, and he was a guy who was becoming a master of it when he was out injured for a little bit there. I remember he bought, when Pecorine was in town, a little goalie stick that he was going to get for like a nephew of his, and Pecorine ended up signing it for his nephew. But before he had him sign it, he was using it to kind of poke people and just prod them as they're interviewing people.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I could very well see him do that. And speaking of goalies, Hellberg and Rob Medor, who played most of the year in Cincinnati, who's an undersized guy, and he came in the first game he came in midway through, and then last night they flipped. He started in the Hellberg game midway through, but Medor, I mean, that guy can play. I mean, I think they have him listed at 5'9" or 5'10". He kind of reminds me of Montreal's backup last year in the Eastern Conference when Price went down. That kind of size guy.
Dustin Tokarski?
Yeah, the guy can flat move post to post. I mean, he had some great saves along with Hellberg. I mean, they both played. They're both, they can make it in the AHL for sure. And I mean, I think they'll get there.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because that's sort of breaking the mold of your Predators goaltenders. You have, Pecorine, who is, massive. I don't know the exact type, but he's super, super tall. Then you have Hutton, who's probably easily as tall. You had your old Anders Lindbach, who's now in Tampa Bay, I believe, still. Uber tall, and even Hellberg, you said, was pretty tall, and now you have going right back down. So it's interesting to see and he might also be the first goaltender to come up in their system in a while that hasn't gotten the Mitch Korn treatment, because he maybe worked with them for a little bit in Cincinnati, but other than that, probably hasn't had much experience, with the goaltending guru of sorts. So do you think that's going to affect his play, or do you think new goaltender coach Ben Vanderklok can help him out?
I think Ben Vanderklok is a great understudy to Mitch Korn. He's been an assistant with him for a long time, and all the goalies I ever heard in Milwaukee talking about Ben Vanderklok, they have nothing but good things to say about him. Guys like Hellberg, guys like Marek Mazanec. Even though I'm actually speaking of Mazanec, his English seems to have gotten a ton better because talking to him about Ben Vanderklok when I did a story on Ben, all he could really say in kind of broken English was, yeah, he's pretty young for this job. That was about it. But he looks to be a great hiring. And that was another great, I think, internal move from the Predators, taking a guy like Ben, who had been in Milwaukee and kind of helping in Cincinnati as well. And I think that a guy like Rob Medor fits into our system really well. I was expecting Medor to probably get like a NHL two-way deal someplace else, and he ended up getting the AHL contract here in Milwaukee. So he's sort of going to probably start in Cincy, but he could easily push for a spot in Milwaukee.
Yeah, no, it looks like the pipeline is pretty much okay for now. I mean, Pekarine's health is, somewhat in question. I mean, you have to, after last season, you have to sort of think, what if he has another injury like that this year? What could possibly happen? What even not this year, but in 1, 2, 3 years down the road, when his contract is sort of, right in the thick of his big 7-year deal, you have to think, who's going to take over? I mean, Carter Hutton's fantastic. I can't quite see him as an NHL level starter yet, but I mean, if Mazanec can develop into a NHL quality player, if Medor can, if Hellberg can, start to get there, then their goaltender pipeline of sorts, looks to be pretty much okay.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, and Mazanec is there, and so Devin Williams got an invite to the rookie camp. They haven't seen the action, but Gover at 303 tweeted out today that Mazanec is going to play the whole game when they take on Boston tomorrow. So Devin Williams, I guess, is there just to be there, I guess. Yeah. But I haven't seen much of Devin Williams. I saw him at development camp, just doing drills and stuff. But yeah, I think thick of things, the goalie system in Nashville's top notch. Speaking of goalie system, besides the Preds goalies, there obviously Tampa Bay had Godlevskis who had stopped Shea Weber slap shots like it was junior hockey.
The Latvian brick wall.
Yeah, I mean, he was unbelievable. Then they had another guy, I can't pronounce his name, Vasilevskis or something like that. And yeah, he looked great too. Tampa Bay has a goalie system as well.
Yeah, which is that's something that we're lacking for years. That was something that was sort of ever since they won the cup is sort of that's what sort of might have been one of the things that was holding them back when they still had Stamkos and St. Louis sort of develop St. Louis on the sort of on the tail end of his career, and then Stamkos just coming up. But now that
Yeah.
they have, now they have Bishop, they have Gudlevskis, they have all these different guys there. I think that's going to the Tampa Bay Lightning this year are one of my top teams in the East and in the whole NHL. I'm a huge. I really like what they're doing in Tampa Bay, and I think they could do some really big things this year.
I agree. I think Tampa Bay could easily win the East. I mean, the East is kind of wide open, in my opinion. I think it's a lot more open than the West. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what Tampa does. I mean, Gudlevskis. I mean, he could get some playing time behind Bishop for sure.
Totally.
But other than those guys that I saw, Daniel, are you excited to see any other major prospects in Milwaukee this year?
I mean, there's a lot of young names. I mean, it's going to be a borderline rookie team for us this year. We don't have many of the veterans. I mean, a name that we just become so accustomed to just being our captain in Milwaukee. Scott Ford isn't even going to be back because there's going to be so many young up-and-coming prospects. So I'm pretty excited for Brendan Leipzig. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm also really curious about year 2 of Colton Sissons, Mika Salamaki last year, watching him play, you talk about sort of that transition from Europe to North America. Not everyone can make that kind of jump because there's sort of a smaller ice surface, a bit less skating, a bit more chippy. But Salamaki fits that type of style so good. Dean Evison always referred to him as a bull in a china shop, and it seemed like sometimes they'd actually have to pull back on the reins a little bit with him before he gets into trouble because even though I don't think his English was all that great, he would get under people's skin just the way that he was playing because he was so hard. But, I mean, you could tell that everyone on the team absolutely loved that edge that he played with, and I'm excited to see what a year 2 from him could be because I know he was pushing for playing time in Nashville last year. He never got it. But I think that if he follows up his season from last year where he led the team in points, he should be trying to get some sort of a playing time or at least one look up in Nashville.
Yeah, I agree. Color, do you have any names that you might be looking for?
Well, yeah, you mentioned Salamaki. He was always an intriguing name last year because you saw players like Sissons and get called up midway through the year, even for a few games. But you didn't really see Salamaki get called up. And I saw the stats he was putting up in Milwaukee. I said, well, why isn't he getting called up? I mean, that could have just been, at that point in the year, they didn't really need to throw any more young guys out there. But I think this year he could totally threaten to come up to the Nashville roster. I wouldn't say he's going to start. I don't think there's enough room for him. But I think midway through the year, if you see Laviolette trying to play around with the lines, he could throw Salamaki in there. But I think the other question is, do you think Salamaki's going to get a preferred call up over Sissons if he continues to develop on this track, or do you think Sissons is going to have the fast track up to Nashville pretty quick?
I think it depends on who they're looking at because I still see Sissons. I mean, Salamaki's more of a winger. Sissons, I actually preferred him at center. He really didn't play much wing at any point during his time in Milwaukee last year. And Sissons is a guy who, the thing that I like about him is he doesn't do any one thing real flashy, but he doesn't do anything particularly bad. He always seems to make the smart play on the ice.
Yeah.
And I think that makes him a much safer option if you put him in that 4th or 3rd line role in the NHL, which is where he was kind of brought in last year, and he did all right, and his face-off numbers in the NHL last year were good, and that's another plus to have. I don't think Salamaki, bring him up and put him into a similar circumstance, would necessarily have that, though Salamaki is comfortable playing center if they alternate him there.
Yeah, well,
it's a matter of seeing where they fit him.
Yeah, well, on the Predators roster this year, I'm getting the vibe that whatever your natural position is does not really matter at this point because with the way their roster's stacked up, they have like 8 centers on the roster or something like that, and they have almost all centers. They have almost nothing on the wings besides James Neal and a couple other natural wingers. But I have never played hockey much before, so I don't know how tough it truly is to move, if you're a center moving to play a winger position. I can't imagine it's, like earth-shattering, like not like a football player like who's been playing defense their whole life suddenly learning to play offense. Like I would think that, they could easily shuffle some stuff around, but I would think, some younger guys coming up and really anyone on the roster may not be playing their natural position come early October.
Well, I think a good example of a player kind of shifting around out of that center role is Austin Watson, who's
Oh
probably
yeah.
going to be on the wing at the start of this season in Milwaukee, and I think he should be because he was very, very noticeably slow. I remember interviewing him after a game when he was on a line with Salamaki and Jonas Rask last year, and he told me outright he just didn't have the speed to keep up with those guys. But when he was put on the wing with Francis Wathier and Mark Van Gilder, he looked like a completely different person, and he was moving around a lot more freely. And Mark Van Gilder was saying that he had the space to operate, and he was being allowed to just move more and get into dead zones on the ice. And he started scoring goals and really becoming one of our better players at the end of the season as a winger. So I think that it sort of gets you out of the mindset that you have to really dictate a lot of the play at center ice and sort of operate your line and sort of manage your wingers. You get that mindset out of a guy like Austin Watson. It just gets you so many more options as a forward.
Yeah, some of the
Yeah,
guys you forget about. Some of the guys you forget about in Milwaukee that got playing time last year. We were hearing a lot about Leipzig, Forsberg, Sissons, and things like that. But you don't hear about or Taylor Beck and Austin Watson are two guys that saw NHL time last year, and at this point are not really getting much talk when it comes to Predators prospects. So I mean, do you think that they're sort of lagging behind and they may sort of maybe looking elsewhere when their contract is up?
Well, Taylor Beck is a guy I'm starting to think his options should be elsewhere just because I'm not sure that the room is really there at this point. I think that there's a lot of other wingers, specifically they're like even a Salamaki, you got Leipzig, Phil Forsberg as well. Lots of other guys who are just sort of moving ahead of him on the prospect sheet. He's probably going to find a job elsewhere, which is kind of a shame because I do like Taylor Beck a lot. He's very versatile. You can put him out there on a penalty kill. You can lead your power play. Does a lot of great things. And last season, I think, really was his best and most mature season that I've seen. He just seemed to really just handle his business and be consistent throughout every single game. But Austin Watson, this is sort of like the last chance saloon for him, I think, this year because he last year was just all over the place. He didn't really kind of get a spark in him until they kind of moved him on the wing, and I'm going to assume that that's where they start him. And if he continues to be sort of off the beaten path, he might get the Kevin Henderson treatment from a year ago where they end up loaning him out to a team because there's just no use to actually have him on the team if he's just not got the stuff.
Yeah. So too many prospects, too little time.
Yeah, but right quick before we switch the topic, what's your bet or your percentage on Forsberg and Sissons each, with their desired position and stuff, making the Predators out of training camp for the preseason and the opener against Ottawa?
Well, I'll start. Swadoosh. 0 donut.
0.
There's so many roster positions already filled in Nashville. It's getting to the point where Sissons. You talk about how the kind of free agent frenzy day went, and you're like, all right, we're going to get Paul Stastny, we're going to get this person, we're going to get all these top 6-4s. Got none of them, but I think that was actually a good thing from Poile because there are so many teams with money burning holes in their pockets. They were splashing money at Matt Niskanen for no good. So he ended up getting some great deals that, if they work, they work. If they don't, you trade these one-year guys like Jokinen, Ribeiro, Roy at the trade deadline, and then you can move the prospects up. But with how many people they actually brought in, Sissons is probably going to be looking at the AHL unless there is an injury. But if there isn't an injury, be in the AHL until the trade deadline if it comes to them having to trade those guys.
Mm-hmm. And what about Forsberg?
Again, that's sort of a similar thing. I think that it depends on injuries. You never. It's been a long time since I've seen a hockey team go throughout a hockey season without injury, so he's probably going to get a look at some point. But I think that the same can be said. I think it's on him to actually earn that spot more than give it to him because you want to give him another look. Because last year specifically, when Forsberg was given that chance, he was sort of, I don't want to necessarily say underutilized, but you're putting him out there basically on a fourth line, expecting first line or second line performance, and you're just not going to really get that.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of shocked with how little they used him last year. I mean, like you saw Yarncroke get pretty much extended time once he was brought over. I mean, I think Yarncroke is probably on a different level than Forsberg as of now. But I think in my opinion, if Forsberg puts out at training camp and then Yarncroke still stays on his trajectory, that if the roster spot is there, then Forsberg, if he doesn't start with the team, could possibly come up in come up before New Year's, if it works out. I mean, if they see that all the veteran guys are still playing like they should, then Forsberg should absolutely start at the AHL. But I think in year 3 of Philip Forsberg, or more 2.5 in Nashville, that they should really give him some NHL time on it where he can actually produce.
And I can see fitting in somewhere there. It's just a matter of, again, him, I think, taking the reins himself.
Yeah.
Because even in Milwaukee last year, that he would have some good stretches. I'm just talking about in a game, and then certain other areas he would sort of pitter-patter out and just kind of look like he was chilling out. I would say, though, at the end of the season, I really enjoyed seeing him pick up his defensive work rate, and he was actually out on the penalty kill a couple of times and actually looking more and more game to shut people down. So he's you have to still remember, I think he's still a teenager.
Yeah, he is.
Sometimes shows.
Yeah.
But the talent's there. I think that it's just a matter of seeing how he matures.
Yeah, the difference for Forsberg's got time though. If he's still a teenager, give him maybe another year in the AHL and he'll still be fine.
Yeah, I don't think enough people realize that he's still that young. I mean, they look at Seth Jones, he's 19, he's already there, but Philip Forsberg is still super, super young, and he's got plenty of time. It's not like Colin Wilson where he's not performing and he's already 24, 25 years old and already on the club. So from that, we go to a player that's already played a lot for the Preds. The one restricted free agent still out there that played for the Preds, most of the year last year, was in Ryan Ellis. And let me just ask straight off the bat, do you think he gets re-signed? Let me ask you all, do you think he gets re-signed by the start of training camp, which starts this week?
I say no. I don't think he gets signed before training camp. I think that maybe if he gets signed, at the start of training camp will sort of put the pressure on both sides, saying, okay, well, the season's going to start and we're not going to be on board. So I think it'll sort of push both sides towards the middle of the difference in the money there. But I honestly think with the way you're saying with Diaby developing and with what I've seen out of Bartley and Ekholm possibly on the third line, that I don't think the Predators are in sort of are desperate to sign Ryan Ellis. I think they can pretty much do without him for the start of the season. If he wants to resign, if he wants to come, he may want to come back. If the Predators want to make that move, that's great. Ryan Ellis is a fantastic player. He'll do well with the Predators, but I do think that the Predators shouldn't be in desperation mode as of now with him.
What about you, Daniel?
And I think last year was really that first concrete year we've seen out of Ryan Ellis.
Oh, so yeah.
It's one thing to sort of work out some sort of a deal for it, but at the same time, there's no real hurry on the Predators' part. Like you just said, I'm not sure it's something you need to push. I don't think that they work out a deal ahead of the season, and maybe that'll be enough for Ellis to just kind of get maybe a more simple deal done. I don't know what he's really looking for. If it's the dollar amount or the years kind of thing, but at the same time, it's only really been last year where we've got to see a real full go of Ryan Ellis without him lagging at some point. 2 years ago, when Dean Evison was down here, Ryan Ellis was down here. I remember hearing a story of Dean Evison actually in front of people in practice telling him he has to get going because there's a reason why he's down here. So he's taken that as a positive, and he had a good season last year, but I don't know if that's really enough to sort of command a certain dollar amount or years just yet. So it's not too much of a worry for them. They do have the defenseman in the pipeline to actually kind of shore up if they need to.
Yeah.
But still want to actually get that guy signed. It's just a matter of I think both sides actually getting to a safe agreement without hurting each other's feelings.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Ellis has been, part of the organization for the past few years now. I mean, I remember the first I really heard about him was it was just either during the lockout shortened year or the year before that. I can't remember. Wayne Simmons, it was the Predators Flyers. Wayne Simmons coming down the ice, and Ryan Ellis just ducks over and sends Simmons flying. He goes head over heels, hits the ice. That was
Yeah.
that made the highlight reels all over the place. So I mean, that was really the first I heard about him. And for undersized defenseman, he's unbelievably skilled. He has the prowess of a forward. Some of the breakaway goals and the shootout goals he's had were unbelievable. So he was one of the only Predators to score on the shootout last season.
Yeah.
But
He's the human rocket ship.
yeah, human rocket ship. Shout out to the Ryan Ellis parody account, I guess. But
Yeah.
they there is one option that if the Predators did not want to re-sign Ryan Ellis, if he were still holding out, again, this is a little bit speculative, but Torrey Krug from Boston is still a restricted free agent, and Boston just inked David Krejci to a long-term extension, which puts them. They were already pretty close to the cap. This puts them pretty much at the cap, so they don't really have room to get Krug back. And I would like to think of Krug as somewhat of a Ryan Ellis 2.0 in a way. He's got a little bit more of a defensive upside than Ryan Ellis. I did a whole statistical analysis of him in my latest piece, which it included a lot of GVT and player usage charts. He gets a lot of offensive zone starts. He could put the puck on the net. I remember the goal last year against Montreal in the playoffs. When he's coming in on a one-timer, like you're done. No goaltender can get past that, a one-timer slap shot. So I think if Ryan Ellis continues to hold out, and then the Predators could turn to Torrey Krug, and I think that if they give him a good offer, then he'll sign it. I don't think the Bruins can match it.
Yeah, I agree. And go check out the piece if you hadn't already. Go give him some views. But no. But yeah, I mean, it was a good write-up. Torrey Krug, obviously, he can play. I don't know if you could do a sign and trade with both teams, but Torrey Krug may make a little bit more money than Ryan Ellis. So maybe, sign and trade, basically sign and swap between Bruins. You never know what could happen. But yeah, I don't know what the Predators Ryan Ellis situation. Last reports we saw was Josh Cooper, who, he said from the Tennessee end that they're not close or anywhere really anywhere close. Nobody really knows what's going on, probably besides Ellis, Laviolette, and Poyle. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, training camp this week. Personally, I'd like to see Ellis there, and personally, I don't want to see him be overpaid because I just don't see him as a top four defenseman on the Predators anytime soon at all. I mean, obviously, you throw him out there on the power play, let him do his thing on the power play. Give him bottom pairing minutes. Which, I mean, if he doesn't want to do that, then maybe he gets shipped somewhere else. Maybe he sees himself as a top four and he wants some more ice time. But I don't think the paycheck is going to get that much differentiated between top four and top six. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, like when you have Yossi and Weber and Jones and Volchenkov in your top four, Ellis is not on that level yet. He can't really crack that. I mean, maybe in a year if Volchenkov decides not to re-up, which I wouldn't think he would, seeing as he's pretty old at this point, then I think Ellis could maybe slip in then once he develops a little bit more. But right now, it's all his bottom 2 minutes are really where he's at.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And me and Gover, I've referenced Gover here like 10 times today, so you better retweet this, Gover. 303, retweet this. But anyway, yeah, he was saying players can only hold out for so long before they have to sit out the whole season, basically, and there's no way Ryan Ellis is doing that. I mean, he's not. It's in a Shea Weber situation here. But yeah, he just we both agree, just throw him on the power play, let him do his business. Let him get over himself, kind of realize, hey, I'm still 5'9", 5'10". I can play defense a little bit, but I'm not a PK guy, anything like that. But we'll see. But
just dress him for the shootout.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mean, it's all a mystery because with the rule changes, so just throw him out there a couple times. Just change the jersey number.
Let him Oshie it.
Yeah, basically. But speaking of Ellis and all the moves, off that topic, is David Poyle done making moves? Cutler, do you think he's done?
I think. Well, do you mean done as in like before the season starts? Is he done making moves?
Let's put a date on it. Before December 1st, does he make a move?
I'd say if he's going to make a move, it's mid-November or something. That time frame. Justin Bradford mentioned that to me. a couple months ago. But mid-November is really when you can tell. Okay, it's been a month and a half into the season. The scenario that I can see in my head is it's a month and a half into the season. The Predators are performing well, but you can tell when they're on the ice that just that one more player, that one more spark will put them over the top. That's where that's the point where you can tell, okay, this team is almost there. It's just going to make one more move, and I think that's when something like that would happen. Who knows what that move could be? Trading for a top line center, which I think would be the best move to play there, because someone to center James Neal would be the ideal situation to create a pretty solid top line. Craig Smith, Mystery Man, and James Neal. But I think mid-November is the timetable for that if the Predators perform the way they should out of the gate.
Yeah. What about you, Daniel?
I'm not too sure if he does or not, and I'm just basing that off of his track record in recent years, because it's really been sort of hanging around and waiting for the trade deadline before you do make certain moves. And I think the way free agency sort of panned out, he was talking so much about getting that top six forward, that didn't really come off. So if it gets to the point where they are looking like they need that one more sort of player, maybe it'd be fun actually seeing what Laviolette's influence would be if he has a player in mind that would work in Nashville that they could maybe go out and get with the prospects that they've got to maybe make a deal. But at the same time, who's really available? I don't know if you're going to know that early into a season. So I'm thinking maybe sometime late December you might see some sort of a move that comes to be where you're at that sort of hinge point of the season right in the calendar. But I'm not sure if a move does get done.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence as well. I mean, it's going to be interesting around the trade deadline if the Predators, are sitting where they were last year, where they had a realistic shot at the playoffs last year. I mean, they only missed it by 3 points. I mean, it's one win. I mean, it could have been done, and obviously, Pekka wasn't in, stuff like that. Which last year, if Pekka was in, I truly think we're the 8th seed in the playoffs. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see, if they're that bad, do they trade away everybody they just signed, get it all done, basically tank the second, the last fourth of the season, and just go for a top 5 pick, or sit around, get a 10 to 13ish pick like they have this year. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to watch. Obviously, I want them to win every game, but I don't think it's not gonna be realistic. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
Last year, if the Predators had played like they did in the last few weeks of the season, when they started abandoning the dump and chase style of offense, when they started playing, I noticed more rushes into the zone, more 3-on-2s, more things like that. If they played more like that, even without a healthy Pekka Rinne, they would have been a much bigger contender in the West, certainly. I think that now that with this new system, there's going to be some growing pains. They're not going to. I personally don't think the Predators are going to make the playoffs. I think they'll be in a similar position that they were last year. But I do think that it wouldn't be worth it to throw a lot of stuff away for a top pick when it comes down to it. I think that if the two options the Predators. The two moves that the Predators can make this season, one would be trading for a top 6 forward if the opportunity presents itself. Now, whether that will present itself or not is unpredictable. You never know. But the other option would be, for the 3rd year in a row, trading away someone for a highly touted prospect, like what they did 2 years ago with the Capitals and getting Philip Forsberg for Martin Erat, or last year getting Kalle Järnkrok for David Legwand. I think that's what they want to do. Bulking up the prospect system even more than it already is. They already have an insane amount of prospects that could see NHL ice time in the next 5 years. But I think that those are the only two moves that they would probably make, the realistic ones, if at best.
Yeah, and with you're saying that the system's already deep. At the rookie tournament, you could see that. I mean, we were all discussing how, not trying to be biased or anything towards the Preds, but I mean the talent that they had. Obviously Florida has Ekblad, who he hasn't played any NHL games or anything. They had Ekblad, Trocheck, and one other guy, but that you recognize pretty well. And then Tampa, they obviously had the 2 goalies. And Drew, and who looked really good their second game. I think Chris Martell was joking around, oh, he hasn't looked ready, and then Josh Cooper walked in and he had a disgusting pass for the game winner. So yeah, I mean, I think Druin looked good. But speaking of system, I mean, the Predators, bar none, had the more names out there, you could say, that you could really recognize. And I mean, the system's already deep. And speaking of Forsberg, I mean, yes, he's still 19. You know, he's still developing. People, you know, need to realize that. But if you're in a situation at the trade line and you're sitting at 6th or 7th in the West, and you want to go get a top center, do you package a Forsberg in a deal? I mean, if it's sitting there and you want, you know, a top center, could Forsberg be a part of that?
Oh, Daniel, I'll let you take this one first.
Well, I think Forsberg in a package deal would be certainly something worth looking into. But again, I always who's out there really on the market for that top 6 guy, and I mean, if you have a top 6 guy, the teams who have him, do you really want to part with them? And is a Forsberg enough to part with them?
Yeah.
So it's a sort of a slippery slope if you're Poyle. I think that you almost have to put Forsberg plus to get one of those kind of top 6 guys. Certainly they have that. So I mean that's a great thing. Again, I'm thinking more right at the deadline, should it come to it, and they're really in contention, right in that sort of probably thinking lower rung of the playoffs. But if you're looking for that little extra jolt for the playoff rush, you could package a deal to get someone. It's just a matter of what teams are doing poor enough to have the pieces there. Do you acquire them? And I'm not too sure who that would be, what teams you're looking at, what players, but I do have a slight feeling with this season, because I do actually like those free agent signings that they brought in as veteran one-year deals, because I mean it works so well in terms of their options. They can keep them, they can trade them. It's all a matter of how the team does. If the team does well, I keep them, and I actually look to add more, because there's still a lot of talent with the team. Like we were saying, they were only points from the playoffs last year, as rough as last year felt because of the injuries of Pekka and stuff like that. So I think you could package Forsberg. It's a tempting thing to keep a guy like that and see what he can become.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could get him for someone who already is versus future.
Yeah. No, well, in my view, it really depends on who the forward is. I mean, just dipping into the Predliner mailbag here, aka our Twitter mentions. At Chris Bush 35 was talking about this very thing. He said he asked, are the Predators open to adding more long-term solution in the forward? He gave the examples of Joe Thornton and Evander Kane. Now, I don't think Joe Thornton's leaving San Jose. I think he's going to retire a Shark. There's no way that they trade him off. And I don't think any team would really want him. He's like, but that's not really a long-term solution at this point. He's pretty old at this point.
38.
Yeah, something like that. So I think if that's who the Predators want to go for, which is not going to happen, then no way you package, prospects of any kind for him. But Evander Kane is an interesting option. Back in July, it broke Twitter pretty much, the debate over Evander Kane. But if they could get him, I don't see why not. I mean, he's a fantastic talent that obviously is not happy playing in Winnipeg, which is more of your traditional Canadian hockey market. Whereas if he came to Nashville, I'd be okay with him going out Broadway after every game. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be an interesting talent to bring in if the opportunity presented himself. Now, are the Jets willing to trade within the division? The answer to that is probably no. But I think in the right deal, if you get the right young guy, right younger top 6 forward, which probably doesn't exist, then yeah, you could probably package a couple prospects in there. But the other thing to consider here is that any deadline day deal for a really good forward would probably have to include the 2015 first rounder. And do you want to give up your stake in one of the greatest draft classes to ever hit the NHL? Probably since the Crosby class back, was 05. But are you willing to give up a spot in this amazing draft class, even if it is like 12, 13, 14, or 15 for the top 6 forward that may not work out? I mean, you saw what happened with Vanek in Montreal, he was decent in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, he was invisible.
Yeah, and Cutler knows how high I am on Evander Kane. Like,
oh yeah,
he's like top 5 of my players that I would like. I even traded for him on NHL 15 to the Preds. I actually traded Forsberg and a pick for him, and it was like, all right, let's get it. But yeah, I mean, if Kane wants out, I mean, I'll go knock on Paul's door. Like, let's get a phone call in, because the guy's good. I mean, he's still young. He can be. I mean, just imagine, a line with Neil and Kane on it would just be absurd. It'd be something Nashville's never seen, basically. But I mean, I think Thornton's not going anywhere. Kane, we'll see. I don't know if, like Cutler said, I don't know if he's unhappy, but I think he's unhappy. He's on the Winnipeg Jets because they're not winning. I mean, if Winnipeg was maybe in the Preds, situation where they're borderline every year, maybe he's a little bit happier. But I think he wants to win, and I think he's a winner, and I just think that's what it comes down to.
But I think it's not only the team, like you said. Winnipeg is probably the one Central Division team that isn't even probably not going to contend for the playoffs this year. But also, I mean, I can imagine the market doesn't get a lot of I mean, it's a hugely popular team in Winnipeg and Manitoba, but I would think it doesn't get quite the massive national media attention in the U.S. that he's craving. I imagine him as sort of not with this playing style, more of like a Johnny Manziel type athlete, where he wants to be seen. He wants the cameras on him. He wants to be heard. And I think if he's trying to reach out to the major national markets, then maybe that's not the place for him. Not like Nashville is much better, but it's certainly an improvement.
Yeah.
Things I did not expect to hear when I joined this, Johnny Manziel. But I think Evander Kane, you look at the players who he's always kind of been around, and that'd make me unhappy if I had that sort of talent, not had enough to work with. I think that naturally, if you slotted him in right now, he'd have a whole lot more variables to work with, and I mean, as good as he already kind of does and plays, it would be amplified with better supporting cast. So that'd be probably at least one of the players that should be on Poyle's radar.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Winnipeg, and it's like, their general manager and their owner. I mean, they have Kane, and they have, they got Trouba in Jones's draft class, which he's an excellent player, but
Mark Scheifele did pretty good last year before he got injured as well.
Scheifele plays well, lads up there, Wheeler, but it's not like they're building a system or a group around those guys. I mean, outside the first line and the first D pairing, and then in net is a whole different story. I mean, it's pretty bad, but I mean, it's just not being built around. I don't know how anybody could be happy, especially Evander Kane and Bufflin and Ladd and Wheeler. I mean, you just can't be happy going into a situation where they're not really doing much. I mean, they didn't do anything this offseason. They didn't do a single thing.
No. Compared to the rest of the Central Division, which did everything pretty much.
It's like the general manager was on the moon for like that 3-week, 4-week span, and then just nothing happened.
Maybe it's the old Poyle joke. His fax machine was broken.
Yeah, I guess so. They need a new fax machine or something. But, looking at all the questions that we got, I mean, I think we've answered them. Let's see. Lawrence Tech asked which prospects, if any. We mentioned that. You just mentioned Chris Bush, and Josh Coons asked, is Poyle going to make this the final roster? Like that we know we have 8 centers trades released. Nobody's getting released. I mean, people could be traded at the deadline, but other than that, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for the show. I'm excited for the season. Had a great time with the guys at the rookie tournament this weekend. Had a good time with y'all on the show as always. Yeah. But yeah, training camps this weekend. I'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm excited to see that. Excited to see the big boys play and Laviolette, see that whole practice game, training camp scheme, and just see what happens. And see, I am interested to see how Forsberg and Diaby and them look against talent like that, and especially Diaby. I think that could be good. I mean, Neil or Rivera could put a move on him and just put him on his butt. But I mean, we'll see how he goes against those guys and just see how it is. But I think that will close out the show for the day. I think we're gonna try to do this about once a week, don't you guys think?
Oh yeah.
Sounds good.
For sure. We could do some weekly analysis shows once the season begins. Maybe a couple of game recap, post game kind of things if we want.
Absolutely, and yeah, so just check us out on predlines.com. We're posting, post there daily. Got to get the numbers out, and yeah, we're turning out some good posts there. You'll need to check it out and follow us on Twitter at predlinesnsh. And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.